the ultimate guide to your most common cognitive biases, or 10 things that you need to avoid while taking any minor or major decisions. That's what we're going to be seeing in today's video. Let's get started. Hey folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. As I said at the start, today we're going to be discussing about all the cognitive biases, right? So what gives me the right to speak about this? Again, I read like a ton of books around decision making, cognitive biases, psychology, and I listened to a ton of podcasts, and based on what I gathered, here are 10 common errors or biases that I have while I was taking my decision. And when I kind of shared this with a lot of my friends, they resonated with it. So you might ask, hey, what is a cognitive bias in the first place? So a cognitive bias is like a mental shortcut that our brain takes to arrive at a decision, right? Because by default, our state is to be a bit more lazy, relax, and find the easiest way out when it comes to a decision making. So cognitive biases, the 10 that I'm going to elaborate, are the mental shortcuts that our brain takes to arrive at a decision. Right or wrong, I'll leave it for you folks to judge it. So the first cognitive bias is called the confirmation bias. And if there is anything that clouded a lot of my decisions, it is this confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is basically you seeking out information about things that you already know, right? What does this look in practice? So let's say you support a sports team or a political party or anything, anything for that matter, right? Or let's say you support a philosophy. You just keep seeking out information to confirm what you already believe. Is that right? Definitely not. I read in this book called Think Again by Adam Grant, where he speaks about a ton of benefits about seeking out the opposite opinion of what you already believe in, right? So how does this affect your decision making? Because a lot of times you might not even consider the opposite point of view that might have a lot more upside as compared to what you already know. So confirmation bias is the first bias that has clouded a lot of my decision and might be clouding your decision as well. The second bias is the availability bias. So what is an availability bias? It's basically you believing in an information or believing in a fact or anything based on the first piece of information that you have, right? What does this look in real life? So I would like to go back to a story of probably 2021, probably like 1.5 2 years back. I did my first trek in the northern part of India. And back then, when I was just exploring about trekking and things like that, the articles that I stumbled about, the stuff that that came to my surface or on my newsfeed were about people having accidents in trekking, people, having breathlessness when they trek, they're having mountain sickness when they trek and things like that. And I started believing that everyone who treks is going to experience this. In reality, the number of people who trek versus the number of people who experience this sickness or tiredness or accidents is very few. So I was falling trapped to an availability bias where I was seeking out information from things that were readily available as opposed to doing my own research. So if you're taking a decision based on the first piece of information available to you, I would highly encourage you to look at alternate perspectives, suggestions, news articles and stuff like that to ensure that you overcome this bias. The third bias is called the hindsight bias. So what is a hindsight bias? So again, this is something that I have been personally affected a lot, where all along after an event has occurred, let's say you took a decision like 2 years back and that decision turned out to be good or bad 2 years down the line, you would say, hey, I already knew this would happen, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say you get into a relationship based on an advice from your friend and things like that. And then for whatever reason, God forbid, I hope that this never really happens. Let's say the relationship never works out, right? So the friend who introduced you would say, hey, I thought all along that this relationship wouldn't work out, but anyways, I just wanted to see if, you guys could sort it out. And then that's why I was on the fence. On the flip side, let's say, the relationship does work out. The friend is going to come and tell you, hey, all along, I knew that this relationship was going to work out. In fact, that was the reason I introduced you folks, right? Or I made you guys meet with each other. So hindsight bias clouds a lot of judgment and makes us think that, hey, we always knew the outcome of, when we took a decision. How can you overcome this? So personally, I try to journal a lot, right? So whenever I'm taking a major life decision with respect to job, personal finances, career or whatever, I try to write down, hey, what is it that I am thinking while taking this decision? What is my emotional state? What is my physical state? What are the conversations I'm having with other kind of people? So that 2 years down the line, when I look at this decision, good or bad, I feel that, okay, you know what, I might have taken a right decision based on the emotional state I was in back in the time. Or, hey, this is why I was taking the decision that I took, even though it didn't turn out to be a great one. So at least I know and I'm aware of why I took a certain decision, as opposed to always, telling myself that I took the right or the wrong decision all along. Fourth bias is called the anchoring bias. So anchoring bias is used a ton by salespeople and marketers like myself, where you have a mental picture of a certain thing or a price of a certain material based on the first piece of information you hear. So for example, let's say you are in the market to buy a car, and let's say you want to buy a sedan, and you hear that the price of that car is around $4,000 or 4 lakh rupees if you are from the my country. And from then on, every car dealer you speak to, you have this mental benchmark of, hey, sedan, a 4-year-old sedan car is going to be around 4 to 4.5 lakh, right? In reality, it might not be the case. It might be slightly lesser or lower. And then you constantly keep comparing every car that you meet or every car seller that you meet and think that, okay, that is the base price, so it should be slightly 10-20% above or 10-20% below the anchor that I have in my mind, which is $4,000 or 4 lakh rupees. Right? Is this the right way to approach things? Probably not, right? Because when you hear the first piece of information, again, as with a lot of biases that we saw before, it might seldom be based on objectivity, and it might be based on a lot of situations that are contributing to the seller quoting that $4,000 price. Maybe you will get it for a much lesser price, or maybe the seller is selling at a much lesser price. So it could be either of these two situations. So I would highly recommend that don't take a decision on the first piece of information you hear, and always probe a bit before you take any major decisions, especially when it comes to buying things. The fifth one is called the framing effect, where you take a decision based on how the information is presented to us. Right? So this is something that I have fallen prey to a lot of times, because it's used a lot of times by sellers, marketers like myself, where we are made to think on the positive upsides of a decision as opposed to what are the potential downsides. For example, let's say I go to buy a car, and then the car seller tells me that, hey, there is a 90% chance that in a car crash this car is going to keep you safe, as opposed to them telling them that, hey, there is a 10% chance that this car might just blow off if you are in a car crash, right? 10%, I wouldn't want to risk driving that car ever in my life, right? I would like take that 90% chance in anything else, but I might end up buying this car because they are saying that, hey, there is a 90% chance that I might be safe. But in critical decisions like buying a car, safety of my house, or things that are very, very important to me, I want to get as close to 100% as possible, right? So 10% is a huge number. So the salesperson is never going to come and say that, hey, there is a 10% chance that this car might not survive a crash, and 90% that it will. You would never end up buying, right? So always look for the holistic picture especially when someone is giving you a stat, or especially when someone is giving you speaking to you in terms of percentage, and never take a decision based on how a sentence or a decision is framed to you, right? Always look at what is the other side trying to tell me. The sixth one is the overconfidence bias, where we always think that an expert or someone who is very, very well known in a field is always going to be right. At times it could be us, at times it could be someone else, right? So in our case, we overestimate our ability to kind of take the right decisions all the time, because of which we never try to look at the other side of things, right? So for me personally, I keep thinking that because I've produced like 65-70 videos and all those things, I might just go and tell a lot of folks that, hey, just trust in the process, do this, do that. At times not realizing that I might not be doing it myself. At times realizing that, hey, this might not even be the right approach, but because it has worked for me, I think that it might be universally true. It could be the same with, let's say, a stock trader. It could be true with a financial advisor who keeps, who's been in the industry for 15-17 years and who might give you a stock recommendation or a financial advice. and not always does it come true, right? How can you overcome this? Is just by doing your own research, right? So there is tons of advisors out there. There are tons of experts giving you opinions about what is working for them. There are tons of people telling you do this, do that. I would say add your own research, and this applies to pretty much everything, be it your career, be it your personal finances, be it your personal life, relationships. Yes, there are people to aid your decision making, but you have to realize that they also come with their own bias, which might be the overconfidence bias. The seventh one is the sunk cost fallacy. This is my favorite one, where you continue to invest in a decision even though it might not be giving you any returns, right? So let's say, for example, a lot of times for me personally, I might have booked a movie ticket or to go to a favorite game of mine, and a last minute I might I might have a personal engagement, or might not be feeling physically or mentally good about going to that movie, but a lot of times I end up going to that movie or that social event because I've invested that small amount of money, because I have kind of told them that I'll be there, right? But that money is already spent. You're not going to recover that money by going to that movie or being at that social event, because in our heads we always equate going to that movie is equal to making value of the money that I spent, right? But that is rarely the case. So don't continue to invest time, energy, and probably your mental energy into things where if it is not going to give you that return, right? So it's okay if you book a movie ticket and you don't turn up because you feel very mentally exhausted, because that money is already spent. By going to that movie, you're not going to get that. I know I'm speaking from a point of privilege, but this could apply to a lot of other projects, right? So you see that companies continue to invest in failing products because they've spent 2 years and they don't want to they feel that probably I'm just one step away from making that big break, right? People continue to invest in toxic relationships because they feel that okay, one more month and I think this will get better. So sunk cost fallacy kind of manifests itself in many forms, shapes in our lives. So don't continue to invest in anything unless you feel like, hey, this is going to give me value. Eighth one is the loss aversion bias, right? So this is something that I was very, very prone to for a very long time, where I felt like, hey, I shouldn't switch job because I'm at a safe place. Hey, I shouldn't be, let's say, starting a new channel to produce content because I'm already, I might lose what I'm doing with YouTube. Or let's say I shouldn't be starting a new investment plan where I have a 50% probability to lose money because I want things to be safe with my investment portfolio and things like that. By nature, humans have an aversion to, loss making and things like that. But imagine, you having a 50% probability to increase your wealth by investing in a particular stock or in a particular instrument and things like that. Imagine your life being 50% better by in terms of your mental health and physical health by switching that job. Imagine what all could happen if you even have a minor probability or a good probability for a success, and you're staying in your current state because you don't want to have that shift, right? So by nature we are we want to avoid any losses that might come to us. So how can you overcome this? Is just by thinking, hey, am I doing this because of a sound reasoning, or am I doing this because I want to avoid any losses? So that this framework has kind of helped me take slightly more riskier decisions, and I've had good payoffs as well, because I chose to come out of my comfort zone, and I'm okay to take that losses because I started to realize that I am responsible for whatever loss or gains come this way. When I have a good probability of a success, I am going to take that decision and not worry about the downsides that might come with that decision. The ninth one, which is something that I used to do a lot, which goes closely very tied to the hindsight bias that we discussed earlier, which is resulting. So resulting is you equating the quality of a decision to the quality of the outcome. Right? So let's say you took a decision, it didn't turn out well, you say, hey, it's a bad decision. You take a decision, it turned out to be great, you say it's a great decision, right? But in reality, for a decision to turn out to be good, bad, ugly, successful, unsuccessful, there are a lot of things at play. Luck is at play, situations is at play, macro, micro, the person's mood, a lot of things, cognitive biases, everything is at play. And for a decision to come to fruition, there is very, very, very minor portion that you control, and a large portion of it is something that you don't control, right? So the best thing to do here is to separate the quality of the decision and the quality of the outcome, and then equate them in isolation, right? So what has helped me on this front is to again think about or journal a lot around why I'm taking a certain decision. What is my mental state? What is my emotional state? What are the information that I have collected regarding this decision? Who all have I spoken to? What are the potential biases they might have when suggesting a decision to me? And then I take a decision. So even if it fails, I know that, hey, this is why I took the decision, and probably I carry on my learning to the next major decision I might take. Right? So never equate the quality of your decision with the quality of your outcome, and just be aware of why you took a decision, irrespective of how the result might be. And the last and the 10th one is the status quo bias, which a lot of us, including myself, was a victim for a very, very long time, where we don't prefer big changes. We want to be in status quo. We want to just go about how things are because we fear change. Human beings are wired to fear, to avert any changes that might come in our daily lives. So we always think, okay, let me not do it. Let me not do this because I have the fear of a change. So I would say, for this, start moving, make that minor move. I think a lot of videos have been made about, how you can get started and things like that. So start with the smallest possible movement that you could do, and then see. So for example, let's say you want to become a creator entrepreneur. You need not just quit your job and start being a creator entrepreneur, because I'm pretty sure you're going to be clueless, right? So you're going to just probably start producing YouTube videos, start writing blogs, start doing some freelancing on these freelancing websites and things like that. Or let us say there is a big initiative that is coming up in your company, and you're very, very afraid that, hey, what might happen with this new tech coming in, new process coming in. I would say just give it a try to see if there are any upsides before you come to your own conclusion, right? So status quo bias stops us from trying a lot of potential new things that could have a huge upside in our lives. So these are the 10 cognitive biases that have kind of crippled my decision making over the years, and I've kind of shortlisted them based on the tons of books that I read. Do let me know if there's any other thing that you want me to cover. Until I see you in the next video, this is Praveen Ramesh signing off.